And the Unchained Melody song performed by the Righteous Brothers goes a little bit like this. Oh, my love, my darling, I've hungered for your touch alone, lonely time, lonely riverside, wait for me, wait for me. Are you still mine? Hi there guys, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel called Blast and the Past, and this time around I have a special film, one of my favorite films ever, I presume. It could also be considered easily one of the best films ever made, ever filmed, and that would be Ghost from 1990, starring Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, and of course Whoopi Goldberg, and she got the Oscar for the best female performance of that year, and many people say that quite rightfully so. But this film, for some reasons, I also associate it with Christmas, because I remember that the first day of Christmas back in the day, we would always spend it at my aunt's, and it was almost every time, every year shown on the telly. That's why I'm very nostalgic about this film, and I can't recommend it enough to you guys. Really, it's a must-see, and no matter how many times you come back to it, you may always enjoy it like it was your first time. You may always find something interesting, some details which you didn't pay attention to earlier. But I would like to talk about it a little bit in detail. So without further ado, buckle up and let's get ready for this roller coaster ride, a fantastic journey with this film, Ghost from 1990.
Whenever anything good in my life happens, I'm just afraid I'm gonna lose it.
I presume that most of you guys know what Ghost is about, but let me just quickly recap the story presented therein. And it's about a couple, Sam and Molly. Sam is madly in love with Molly and vice versa, ditto, and unfortunately one fateful night Sam is murdered. But he becomes a ghost and he needs to solve a case, the mystery behind his murder, because there is more than meets the eye, that's for sure. And trust me, I'm pretty sure that in 1990 when the film was released, it must have been quite a plot twist when it is revealed who is behind all of that. But I'm not going to go into details just in case, because maybe for some of you it will be the first time watching. I don't want to spoil it for you, but trust me, this is just the tip of the iceberg what is going on. And although you may pass away, you may still be present on Earth according to this film, and you may still be in love with that beloved one from your past when you were still alive. And this is what this film revolves around, about this afterlife presence and the power of love, how strong of a bond it is in life, and also the power of friendship, because Sam gets help from some people, and one in particular, Oda May, who is a self-proclaimed psychic. However, it turns out that she really can hear Sam, and she may be able to help him, to warn Molly that her life could be in danger too. The plot thickens, trust me, the film is 2 hours long, but you will never notice it. That's how quickly it flies from one subplot to another. And I think that is one of the best recommendations I could give to this film, to this motion picture.
This psychic woman's got a record that goes back a long way.
The film was a gigantic hit, a smash success in 1990. It cost a mere $22 million to make, but it grossed worldwide around $505 million. So it was a spectacular success. Nobody probably had believed in this motion picture so much. And also many people claim that actually this film set the vibe for romantic comedies throughout the whole 1990s. It laid the ground. And I can easily understand why, because this film is a perfect mixture of different genres. Of course there is romance, there is drama, but there is also comedy, and there is a suspense. It's like a thriller, I couldn't believe it. It wasn't my first time watching. Obviously, I watched it yesterday. I had a special screening, and I had seen it many times, numerous times. So nothing surprised me in terms of the plot itself, how it developed. But what did surprise me is that the film holds up really well, and it's an everlasting classic. I kinda envy those of you guys who have never seen this motion picture and for whom actually this could be the first time watching, because I can't even conceive how impactful it could be in your lives. So I envy you, but also I am here to spread the good news about those gems of the past from the 1980s, the 1990s, that they are still worth visiting. Although we have many romantic comedies right now, also mixed with dramas, trust me, this is something atypical, and the old atmosphere of the past decade, it is also fantastic. It only adds to the charm. It creates this another layer, thanks to which you may enjoy this motion picture even more. I would like to keep this review pretty short. We'll see if I succeed in that, but trust me, even if I talked for hours on end, endlessly about this film, it would not be enough to praise how good of a motion picture it is. So I think that it speaks volumes of this film, of Ghost from 1990.
Oh God.
The film has many iconic scenes. It features many iconic moments. One of them is the famous pottery scene, in which Sam, Patrick Swayze's character, embraces Molly and they start creating a clay figurine together. And of course, in the background there is this everlasting hit, Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers. And this is hands down my favorite version of this song, because also Elvis Presley sang it, but there is something great about this particular rendition, this particular cover, so I love it very much. And the scene itself, it was later parodied in The Naked Gun 2.5, which was also directed by Jerry Zucker, together with his brother, if I'm not mistaken. But it doesn't take away anything from the original scene. It is as romantic as before, and it shows also how iconic those motion pictures from those decades were, that it was very easy to parody them, to mock them, because everybody would know where it came from. It was so memorable, so touching, that the parody, the spoof films released later had a very easy time. That's why probably we have also very few of them right now, because we don't have so many immortal, impactful, memorable and iconic motion pictures as we did before, arguably. But I think that many people would agree with me on that. Wouldn't they? The film is also very well cast. Patrick Swayze is really good in his performance, in his role, although sometimes he may make a little bit like funny faces here and there, but generally he delivers in his role. And also Demi Moore, she could cry just on a cue, just like that, and this is what landed her this role, and she has great chemistry with Patrick Swayze. There is also Whoopi Goldberg in her Oscar performance, who plays a psychic, and she adds this additional layer of comedy into the film. And really, also I was pretty surprised with how attractive she was, because I remember her from later pictures, motion pictures, and also many people claim that she's not very pretty, but she has something special in her beauty. So they say that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and probably many of you would agree with that. There is also a very interesting performance by Tony Goldwyn as a very important character, a character who is crucial to the plot for some reasons, and he wasn't well known at that time, but I think that also it was a good choice, because his audition tape, actually, it had been received very well, and the producers, they had been coming back to it again and again, and eventually they did decide to hire him, and it's for the better, because like I said, the cast is great, and all of them are pretty well known for those people who are into the cinema, like myself. Of course, the biggest names would be Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore and Whoopi Goldberg, but Tony Goldwyn, I think that he is also pretty recognizable.
Are you out of your mind? I mean, what are you gonna tell the police?
I presume that in 1990, this film also must have been a technical marvel, because Sam is a ghost later on, and he just moves throughout the objects. He just passes through them, and you have in many scenes this kind of gimmick that he wants to touch something but he cannot, and his hand goes right through the object, for example. So of course you can see that the picture was superimposed. There was one frame superimposed onto the other, and at that time it was pretty visible because the colors were bleaked in some parts of the screen, but really it holds up also very well, although it's been over 3 decades since its premiere, and there is something charming about those old special effects like superimposition. And probably the film would have been even cheaper than those 22 millions which they had spent on it had they not used those effects. But you have to admire the effort and how well it looks, because mind you, again, the film is from 1990, so it's been 34 years since its premiere. And I watched it yesterday, and I really can't say a bad thing about the special effects and how well they were created and implemented into the narrative.
The problem with you is you still think you're real.
I'm not sure whether this gimmick with a supernatural being, like a ghost, has been used a lot of times, but I remember that there was a comedy called Ghost Dad with Bill Cosby, and I also remember that it was named one of the worst films of its year when it was released, but as a kid I enjoyed it. It wasn't the best picture ever, probably. Bill Cosby was, well, in his solo films, I think that he was never very good, unlike in that famous TV series, The Bill Cosby Show, but as a family flick, I think that it was pretty acceptable, and they also used those special effects with the superimposition. I think that they were not done as well as before in Ghost, but still it's worth mentioning that there was something like this curiosity like Ghost Dad.
You don't try to threaten me!
Regarding the unusual mixture of genres, so like I've said, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of romance, drama, thriller, even the director, Jerry Zucker himself, said that it was just like a roller coaster ride. And he did his best to balance out the elements, and in one of the scenes, there is a very interesting romantic scene, a love scene, in which actually the audience started laughing, and I can on the one point understand why, but on the other hand, the director and the crew behind the film, they did their best to put it into the filmic language the best they could. It's a spoiler-free review. I'm not gonna reveal which scene in particular I'm talking about, you have to check it out on your own, but probably those who have seen this film just once or even a couple of times, they know which scene I'm referring to. And it is much later in the film. It involves Sam, Molly and Oda Mae. I just think that they did whatever they could to underline the emotions which the main characters must have been going through in that particular scene, in that particular moment. What I'm holding in my hand is a pretty lovely edition of Ghost from 1990. It's a Polish release, and really it looks very sleek, the packaging, the packet. And to be honest, before the screening, before I saw the film yesterday for the umpteenth time, I hadn't had too big expectations regarding the picture quality, but my goodness, does it deliver. This mere DVD disc, the format, really, it looks so great. It must have been copied straight from the film reel, because I just don't believe it. I can't even comprehend how well the Blu-ray version must look, because many people claim that it is a visible and noticeable upgrade over the old DVD release. And like I said, the picture quality is fantastic. You may make out the details in the foreground, in the background. Everything is crisp. It has this filmic quality. You feel like you were at the cinema watching it for the first time ever. So that's why I started believing again in the DVD format. If it's released properly, just like this one, really, I'm not surprised that many people say that they don't need any Blu-ray versions, not to mention the 4K format. Just the good old DVD is enough for them. And sometimes it is enough for me too, because I remember that in the past I did purchase Ghost on Blu-ray, again the Polish version, but I gifted it to one of my best friends ever. So that's why I don't have it in my collection anymore. I didn't want to bother him, and also I decided to have it in mine as well, because this is an everlasting classic. But thankfully, the picture quality of this Mir DVD release is just top notch. It's chef's kiss, and I wish all of them were just as good as this one. But unfortunately, it's a hit and miss. You never know what you're gonna get. Just like Forrest Gump said in the film titled, not surprisingly, Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're gonna get. But in this case, thanks to me, you know what you're gonna get. A very good picture quality.
Life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
I just can't recommend this DVD edition strongly enough to you guys. If you have a chance to grab a copy of this, please do, because it's worth having. Of course, the Blu-ray would be better, probably, but you can't complain regarding this format either. Of course, the soundtrack makes this film work even better. It makes it even more touching, because apart from the famous pottery scene with Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers, this song is also featured later throughout the narrative. And this song is an earworm, one of those songs which you can't stop humming, singing, and it adds such an emotional value to what is going on the screen. I think that many films wouldn't work perfectly without the right soundtrack, and in this case it's just a perfect storm, but in a good way. It has the plot, it has the narrative, it has the comedy, the emotions, the thrills, the soundtrack, the main song, the theme song, the composition, and it's well acted. Just everything is there, and also special effects on top of that. To me, it's an example of a perfect film. We can't exactly say a perfect film in its category, because what category is that? A romantic drama? Perhaps that would be the most fitting description, but also there is more to that than meets the eye, because it's a combination, a hodgepodge of different ones, but it works perfectly. So chapeau bas to the director, chapeau bas to the writer too, because this is something one of a kind. You don't have too many motion pictures like this which deliver on all fronts, and Ghost definitely does.
I get a message from Sam.
There is a very interesting piece of trivia that Bruce Joel Rubin, the writer of Ghost, actually burst out crying when he heard that Jerry Zucker had got the job, the gig, as the director of this film, because Jerry Zucker, before, he directed many comedies. He was known for comedies, but apparently it is possible to switch from one genre to another seamlessly, just like the Farrelly brothers did with Green Book, which is also a very good film. Of course, it was a spectacular success at the box office, at the Oscar ceremony. There is also Todd Phillips with his Joker, and before he was known for the Hangover franchise. So again, in Jerry Zucker's case, it worked perfectly, and later on he parodied, he mocked the pottery scene in The Naked Gun 2.5. But it takes great mastery to move swiftly from one genre to another, just like he did with Ghost.
What do we do about the bones?
We do this.
In terms of the work behind the camera, there are many wide shots, and this is fantastic. This is typical of the films from the 1980s, the 1990s, that the directors knew how to work with the camera perfectly. So whenever you need the close-ups, you have the close-ups, like in the pottery scene, because Jerry Zucker didn't want to present the full naked body of Patrick Swayze. But also, when the film, the narrative calls for it, you have wider shots, and the camera work, it moves fantastically. This is just perfect. That's why I love the old cinema, the vintage one, because they spared no expenses on making them. Right now, everything is made with the close-ups, because of course everybody tries to save up on the budget, but it shows. It sticks out like a sore thumb, and this is the difference between the decades back then and the modern times, when the budgets may be blown out of proportion, but you can't simply see it on the screen, can you? There are also several pieces of trivia on IMDb regarding Ghost, the making of it, some extra information, and one of them is about the horrible sequence when those devils, the incarnations of the devil, they take away the soul of a sinner. And the one is that the horrific sounds made by the dark shadows are really the sounds of babies' cries, played at extremely slow speed backwards. But trust me, the sounds which they make, they put immediately, instantly chills on your back. And they create this thriller dimension of the film. It is almost like a horror flick. And it also shows how tormented the souls of the sinners will be later on in their afterlife. And another piece of trivia regarding the iconic pottery scene, one of the probably most romantic, sexiest moments ever filmed, ever put on film in the Hollywood industry. Here it goes. The pot wasn't supposed to fall apart, but Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore just kept going and played it by ear. And I know that there is another piece of trivia regarding that actually the scene was supposed to have been extended and there was supposed to have been a full love scene, but they decided to cut it just in half, and I think it's for the better, because sometimes the less is shown the more, and in this case it worked perfectly, like a charm. Just chef's kiss. The mastery of Jerry Zucker. Regarding the director Jerry Zucker, very often he collaborated with his brother, and the trio actually, so three of them, I mean Jerry Zucker, his brother, and also another person, they were known as Zaz, Z-A-Z, and that trio, Z-A-Z, Zaz, it was David Zucker, Jim Abrahams and Jerry Zucker. And Jerry Zucker is the one who directed Ghost from 1990, and I've checked his filmography just to make sure regarding his directorial films, his directorial work, and of course we have this one. It's a spoof comedy, it's an everlasting classic in its own genre in terms of parody films, and it's Airplane with an exclamation mark at the end of the title from 1980. And it was directed by Zaz, Z-A-Z, all three of them. And later on, Jerry Zucker also directed...
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Robert Hayes.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Top Secret in 1984 with Val Kilmer, so it was another spoof of spy films. Then we had Ruthless People in 1986. A pretty good comedy with some action, because it's about a kidnapping which goes south, which goes away pretty quickly. Then we had, of course, Ghost, one of the best romantic dramas slash thrillers ever. But I think that this film leans towards the romantic genre the most. With some comedy added to it also, thanks to Whoopi Goldberg and her stellar Oscar-worthy performance, which actually it did receive the Oscar award for the Best Actress. And
the Oscar goes to Whoopi Goldberg.
And after Ghost, Jerry Zucker followed it up with The First Night. In 1995, it was an adventure slash fantasy film with Sean Connery and Richard Gere. A pretty interesting duo, and a very good film actually, very decent. I'm pretty nostalgic about it. And last but not least, we have a Rat Race from 2001. It's a hilarious comedy. I can't recommend it enough. Whenever I'm a little bit down on my luck, I feel a little bit blue, I turn it on, because it's a no-brainer. Really, you get your money's worth and even more than that. In terms of the humor it features, maybe it's a little bit politically incorrect, like the whole sequence with the Barbie museum, and you have to check it out because you will burst out laughing. And it's not about the doll, mind you, it's not about the doll, the Barbie museum, and many other scenes like that. There is also a star-studded cast. We have John Cleese as a businessman who organizes this whole venture, this whole thing. Of course, he's known from the Monty Python group with his great accent.
We don't have much time. There's a meteor the size of North Carolina heading straight for Earth.
When he wants to incite them to actually start running. So he says, go! Go! Just go! And they can't believe that it is for real. I mean, the rat race, really, that they may win the main prize, some millions of dollars.
I'm eccentric. Go!
There is also Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean, and I remember one scene when he says, "Oh, it's a race, I'm winning, it's a race," and he's an Italian guy, a pretty funny role, and Whoopi Goldberg again, actually, and many other names, so this is a great film.
It's a race! I'm winning!
It guarantees you, or should guarantee you, a couple of laughs, if not more than that. I burst out laughing every time I watch it, I come back to it, but this is just me, so you have to give it a go too. But also it shows that Jerry Zucker is equally good at comedy, at drama, a little bit of a thriller, suspense, and Ghost is a perfect blend of it. It has everything, but it is probably because Jerry Zucker had been garnering experience on the set of many previous films, also comedies. As you can clearly see, he is seemingly a jack of all trades.
That's it. Go.
Therefore, because of that, I'm not surprised that the writer of Ghost was distraught when he heard that it was Zucker who had got the role as the director of the film, because before he had been known mostly for comedies, for spoof films, for pretty crazy flicks, and suddenly he got to direct romance, drama, thriller, a little bit of comedy thrown in there as well, but mostly it's a romantic flick and it has many dramatic undertones. I can imagine his surprise and his disappointment, but Jerry Zucker turned out to be the right man for the part. And it shows how versatile of a director he was, and he is, and hopefully maybe he will come back with yet another flick. We'll see, time will tell.
I know about the green underwear that you wrote your name on.
But coming back to Ghost, like I've said, it must have been a technical marvel, quite an achievement back in 1990 when it was released, but there are many inconsistencies regarding Sam being a ghost and his transparency, and sometimes he goes through the living matter, sometimes he doesn't, and there are also some objects, sometimes he is able to touch them, sometimes he is not, he makes footsteps when he's not supposed to, but really, who pays attention to that? Who cares? It's a work of fiction, isn't it? These are just tiny details and it's only for nitpicky persons, I suppose. Really, maybe there were some inconsistencies, maybe there were some irregularities when I was watching it, I've seen it many times. I didn't care then, I don't care right now, because it's about the romance, it's about the drama, it's about the suspense. It will keep you grinding your teeth, clenching your fist.
Somebody!
The people who watched it for the first time, they didn't see it coming that easily. I think so. I don't remember my experience when I saw it on the telly for the first time, but I guess that it must have been a little bit surprising at least. And generally how the plot moves later on and how it touches upon the topics of religion, of faith, of moving to the other world, the life after life, that the people who have some unfinished business, they are still here to resolve their matters, and if not, they are stuck in here. So maybe actually this world could be conceived a purgatory. We could think of it like this, and this is presented in Ghost, the film, that people who are looking for redemption, they are still stuck in this world. If they have been very good, if they have nothing else left, I mean unfinished business, they move on to heaven. But if they've been very bad people, they've been vile, they've been malicious, they've done many bad deeds, then they are taken by those horrific creatures which make this unsettling sound. And this part is a bit like from a horror film, but like I said, it blends in with the whole narrative just perfectly. I wouldn't change anything in this film, to be honest. To me, hands down, it's one of the best romantic films ever made, and maybe this is just me, maybe I'm just nostalgic about it, maybe I look at it through rose-tinted glasses, because I saw it when I was a kid or a teenager, I don't remember exactly, but I think that it shows everlasting themes which are always there in our lives. The value of love, true love, friendship, and unfortunately there is also betrayal, which is very common in life, but it's about dealing with obstacles, but about letting it go also. Sometimes if you really love somebody, you need to let it go and move on. And this is also one of the core points, elements of Ghost.
Sam's dead.
Tell her I love her.
He says he loves you.
also a piece of trivia about Patrick Swayze's character Sam being a ghost. This piece of trivia is also featured on IMDb, and it goes like this. When they were filming the chase scene at night in New York City, it was really cold, and everyone else was bundled up except for Patrick Swayze's character Sam Wheat. And since he's a ghost, they didn't want his breath showing, so they had him chew ice. This is creativity. No special effects of this sort, at least not some trivial ones, removing it, just good old practical solutions to sometimes trivial matters.
Don't you see I'm not a fake?
I don't know what's real anymore.
And obviously Ghost is a relic of the past a little bit, because it's been 33 years, can you believe it? Can you conceive that? Since its premiere, and it shows, first of all, in terms of the technology, the computers, and second of all, because of something else. And there is another piece of trivia on IMDb regarding that, and it goes like this. Bruce Joel Rubin, so the writer of Ghost, believes that two things date the film. The first one being the computer monitors, and the second one Arsenio Hall. And actually the computers, so I like this nostalgic vintage retro vibe in the film. And of course the monitors presented in the film, they are those big ones, the CRT ones, with the green screen, the green hue all over it. And I'm a sucker for that, to be honest. And regarding Arsenio Hall, so he was a big name, a household name back in the day. He had his own show in which he interviewed many famous guests, like Jean-Claude Van Damme was his regular, he was featured there a couple of times. Even Steven Seagal, when he roasted Van Damme as a rival.
Do you know Van Damme? No. You've heard of him?
Of course, Arsenio Hall also tried his best at acting, and he was featured in Coming to America with Eddie Murphy in a pretty important role. However, in one of the moments from his show, Arsenio Hall's show, featured in Ghost, he says, "Do not adjust your TV screens, I am black."
I'm Arsenio Hall, don't try to adjust your television, I'm black.
And those tiny tidbits of trivia, of some interesting things, references, they can be caught, they can be picked up only by the people who either lived in those times or who are interested in that culture, the American culture, how it developed, the Hollywood industry. So there is always something special about watching those old films, that if you are into them, into those decades, you will get something more out of them. And this is fantastic. That's why I like even discovering some gems from the past. Ghost may not be an unknown gem for me, but it is a gem nonetheless, that's for sure.
What do you want?
Let me just say a couple of words about the cast. Patrick Swayze as Sam, he's really good, but I would like to talk about something else. So actually his physique, because before he was known for some action films like The Roadhouse, for example.
How does a guy like you end up a bouncer?
Just lucky, I guess.
And he wanted to change his repertoire a little bit, and he became quite a romantic lead, we could say, thanks to Ghost. But his physique, this is interesting, because on the one hand he was never seen as a buffed guy of the likes of Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme. However, I would say that his physique, that it could be achieved thanks to natural means, only by rigorous training, the diet. That was great. He could have been a role model, and maybe he was for many people. So his silhouette had that athletic look, which you could believe that it might have been achieved naturally, after all. And Patrick Swayze at the time of filming of Ghost was around 38 years old. And it's a funny thing that, to me, in Point Break, released just 1 year later, he looked much younger. Maybe it was because of his hairdo, he played a surfer, but really, he looks like in his early 30s. And in Ghost, sometimes in some scenes, he looks a little bit tired, a little bit more mature than his age. I don't know how to put it exactly. But later on, unfortunately, he started suffering from cancer, and that was the sad end to his career, to his life. That's a shame.
For so long, before its time.
But we have to admire the roles which he gave us and the films which he gave us. And later on, maybe his career was a little bit hampered and hindered for some reasons. Maybe he just couldn't find the right repertoire, but thanks to him and his effort, we have Ghost, which is an all-time classic. and I think that it would be great to be such a role model like Patrick Swayze in terms of his physique and how well his body is developed in this picture. So if you train hard enough, if you eat well enough, you may achieve it. This is this kind of a motto, this is this kind of a message, and it's great because remember, stay natural, don't use anything special, any supplements, just stay natural because you may always improve your physique no matter what. And Patrick Swayze in here in this motion picture is the best example of that. Demi Moore, I've always been a fan of her, I've never criticized her, she's had many good roles. Also I remember her role in Disclosure, where she seduced and even we could say raped Michael Douglas, his character. So that was a very atypical take on the formula, but she's always been very attractive, very hot to use this common language, and right now even she is in her maybe late 50s, correct me if I'm wrong, but she does her best to take care of her looks, of her physique, and this is always worth praising, that's for sure.
She said you sexually harassed her.
She harassed me.
And Whoopi Goldberg, she does make the second part of the film work so marvelously, so stupendously, because her comedic chops are used to the best effect in the second part of the film. After the first hour, when maybe it becomes a little bit less serious, the film, but like I said, so she delivers a great performance as a psychic. At the beginning a crook, she turns out to really be a psychic, a genuine one, because she can hear voices and this is no schizophrenia. She can hear the ghosts surrounding her, and that includes Sam, who starts annoying her just to make her do whatever he wants, and he wants to warn Molly, his love interest, that the danger is looming on the horizon. And the chemistry between everybody, between all three of them, this is top notch. So whoever decided to cast them, he did a great job. And Patrick Swayze didn't want to play without Whoopi Goldberg, so he albeit pushed her to be cast as Oda Mae, and that's for the better. Everything works perfectly in this motion picture, and so does the cast.
You for the check.
Just to sum up, I have no idea how cold-hearted you would need to be not to be touched and moved by this film. I'm not talking about shedding a tear, although it would be nothing to be ashamed of, regardless of the sex of the person, regardless of the person watching it, but just how well it is combined, and the themes it touches upon, and the conclusion to it. It's so moving, it's so touching, it's so gut-wrenching with its emotionality, that I can't imagine anybody not be moved by this film. But again, maybe this is just me, I'm maybe more sensitive than the others, but I think that many people on IMDb in the comment section, they underline the same thing. They emphasize how great of a film it is, and it shows universal values, and it's very difficult to dislike this film. I couldn't agree more. I think it's just a universal motion picture for everybody. That's why it could be watched even with teenagers, so with older kids, who are able to understand the good from the evil. There is everything for everybody, and it works just fine.
You gotta take all your anger, all your love, all your hate.
At the end of the day, after all, who wouldn't like to be in a relationship like the one between Sam and Molly? The love forever. You pick one person and this is the right person for you. This is the person in your life, and you would do anything for that special one. I think that everybody, somewhere deep down, they are looking, yearning for this kind of a relationship, this kind of a partner. But I do believe that there is that one special person for everybody in this world, hopefully. This kind of love, maybe without the supernatural element, without turning into a ghost, is definitely possible. This kind of love which can overcome all the obstacles which may happen in life. The one which moves beyond the carnal limitations of our bodies, and it's also about the heart and the soul. Just to sum it up, in a nutshell, I hope that you'll decide to give Ghost another try, because it's worth seeing for the first time, worth coming back to it numerously. I think that this film holds up very well despite its age. there is something for everybody. And if you just have a look at the comment section on IMDb, it is obvious that it's a favorite of many people, and they love also the combination of genres because it works perfectly. And I don't know how they did it, but those people behind this motion picture created arguably one of the best films ever. And I mean ever. Probably it should be featured in the list of top 500 films ever created. And I hope that you will agree with me, guys, on it. I hope that you have enjoyed my take on Ghost. If you are not subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing to it. If you have liked my video, please give it the thumbs up. Please share your thoughts on Ghost, the film itself, on Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, Whoopi Goldberg, so just the cast of the film, also on my take on it. I would love to hear from you guys, your opinion on the motion picture, and especially those who have seen it recently, maybe for the first time. That would be very refreshing to me, to see what other people think about it. If you are not so positive about this film, please give me a go too. Please write to me. Please share your thoughts on it, because I would like to see the other point of view on that. If the film doesn't work for you, please let me know why. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope that I will see you next time and you will decide to come back to my channel, and I'll catch you up later. Cheers. Bye.
See ya.